العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Inshallah, we'll continue on with our discussion. We are in the section of fasting, as-siyam, and we covered some of the muftarat as-siyam, the things that invalidate the fasting of one who is in the state of sawm or siyam. We said obviously the first and the second one are the main ones, eating and drinking. And here a reminder that we are discussing the physical aspects of fasting. This is jurisprudence, and therefore we're covering the physical aspects of fasting and what invalidates the sawm or fasting from the Islamic law perspective, not from ethical or spiritual perspective. So the first and the second we said is eating and drinking, and it doesn't matter whether what we eat is or what we drink is permissible or non-permissible. They both invalidate fasting. However, God forbid, if it's non-permissible, then if one is in a wajib siyam, the fasting that is obligatory, and they break their fast on something that is haram, then there is a combination of kafara. So kafara is multiplied. It's not just if it's intentional breaking of fast with that reason that is acceptable and it is on haram, therefore the kafara for it is multiplied. All the kafarat, meaning the feeding of the poor as well as the fasting of the 60 days, feeding of 60 poor, fasting of 60 days, and so on. So that is the difference if the fasting is broken, God forbid, on what is haram. If the eating and drinking enters from the eye or the mouth or the nose, whichever way. Now obviously you might say, how do we eat from the eye? If an eye drop, for example, goes through the eye through the tube from the eye to the nose, and then from the nose to the throat, and one swallows it. If it's done intentional, obviously that is also considered the consumption of something that invalidates the fasting. It is one mas'ala. If one does not eat intentionally, forgets, for example, it's not one is not aware that they're eating or drinking, in the sense that they're forgetful. If that happens, then one does not it does not invalidate the fast. Also, in terms of if it goes, and I mentioned this, if it goes through if somebody has an injection into their veins or into their muscle or something, that kind of injection, although it enters the body, according to Ayatollah Sistani, it does not invalidate the fast. If you follow somebody else, you need to clarify, because we do have some of our marajah who have a different opinion on this matter. It is okay for one to swallow whatever is in their mouth in terms of their saliva. So some people ask, can I swallow my saliva, for instance, or any of the mucus or something that's within the body? Is it okay that one swallows it? Yes, it is, and it does not invalidate the fast. Now, if something comes from the sinuses, for example, and somehow one coughs it into the mouth, and then if it goes directly down, it's not a problem. But if it comes into the space of the mouth, then it should not be swallowed. It should be, one should spit it out and not swallow it. The next one regarding what invalidates the fasting. Now, if there are questions or anything with food and drink, we can cover them. Otherwise, the next one is to lie, intentional lie against God and the Messenger. Now, lying in general might affect one's fasting in a spiritual sense, but in a jurisprudential fasting, it is void and it's invalid if one intentionally lies against God or the Messenger, or Ahlul Bayt for that matter. So if somebody says that the Prophet said so and so, and it's a lie, and they know it's a lie. If they say, I read that the Prophet said, or I read this hadith, I heard this hadith, it's okay. They're not telling as in if this is what I know and it is from the Prophet. But if somebody says, the Prophet said, and they tell a lie intentionally, or the Imam said, and they tell a lie intentionally, or God said, this is what God said in the Holy Quran, for example, then if it is intentional lying against God and the Messenger or the Ma'sumin, the infallible ones, it does invalidate fasting, and this is obligatory precaution. Okay, على الأحوط وجوبا. And it also includes Sayyidah Fatima salamullah alayha. In that, for obligatory precaution, it includes if one lies and says that Fatima salamullah alayha said, and it is an intentional lie. If somebody thinks that this is what they said, and says that this is what they said, believing that this is what God said in the Quran or the Ma'sumin said, in that case, it is not invalidating of the fast. So if somebody believes that this is what Quran said, or this is what the Ahlul Bayt said, and they say it does not invalidate the fast. However, if once they become aware, then they cannot obviously say that which say that the Prophet or God said, because that would become intentional lying. If somebody recites Quran and is not familiar with the recitation, the pronunciation, makes mistakes in the accents, fatha, dhamma, kasra. If somebody has that situation, therefore, if they are reciting and make a mistake, unintentional, it does not invalidate their fasting. But again, if it's intentional, it does. And one who does not is not sure, it's better not to. We have actually some of our ulama that during the month of Ramadan, when they give speeches, they try not to recite ayat or riwayat because of this very issue, that they may make a mistake and that would affect their fasting. The fourth one, according to many of our ulama, if we submerge the head, the entire head, into the water, not having a shower, let's be clear, not having a shower as in running water. If we have running water on the head, it's not a problem. But if one submerges their head in a pond, pool, I guess, a small, even bathtub, submersing the head completely into the water. According to some of our ulama, it invalidates the fasting. According to Ayatollah Sistani, he considers that to be not recommended, makruh, but it does not invalidate one's fast. So it is better that they avoid it, obviously, either as a makruh act or in terms of some maraja who consider it even something that invalidates the fasting. Then he says, in general, this is recommended precaution. As a recommended precaution, according to Ayatollah Sistani, it is best not to basically submerge the head in a ghusl, complete body and head in a ghusl while fasting. This is again recommended precaution. The sixth one is basically intentionally making one have the semen come out, okay, intentionally, in any way, whether it be, obviously, if it's intercourse, it is one of the things that invalidate fasting automatically, but even if it's not complete, but that occurs, that also invalidates fasting. So one has to avoid anything that would cause that, because if they do it intentionally, then it does invalidate fasting. However, if somebody is asleep and that occurs, what do they call it? Wet dreams, I think some people refer to it. If that happens, then it does not invalidate fasting, although as soon as it occurs, one has to, when they wake up, they need to make ghusl as soon as they are able to. The seventh item is to remain on janaba or haid for women. To intentionally remain in the state of janaba or haid, it invalidates the fasting. So in the month of Ramadan, or when one wants to fast, wajib fast, they need to make sure that they're in a pure state, and if they require ghusl, that they make ghusl before Fajr, and they maintain that until the time of iftar. And if they do invalidate their if they do somehow realize that they require ghusl, they need to make it before Fajr. If there are no questions, I think we 3 minutes? Okay, so we're going to have to do the hadith afterwards, inshallah. So I guess we'll continue with a couple of them. Any questions so far? Okay, so we'll continue with the eighth item. So we said the seventh one is to remain in the state of janaba, and that, or hayd, in other words, needing ghusl. It's important that we remember for one to fast a wajib fast, they need to be in this pure state. So if women are not able to make ghusl before Fajr because they're not yet completely pure, if they're in hayd, for instance, and they're not completely pure before Fajr, and they're not able to make ghusl before Fajr, therefore that day they cannot fast. They can only fast if they are clean before Fajr and they're able to make ghusl. If somehow they realize afterwards, let's say they did not think that they could fast, and they did not think that they were able to make ghusl, but later on they realized that, oh, it was okay to make ghusl and fast on that day. if they did it unintentionally, as soon as they realize, they make ghusl and make the intention of fasting. But if they did it negligently, then they didn't check, they didn't test, they expected but didn't make an effort, that would be considered deliberate breaking of fast or deliberate ruining of one's fast. The eighth item is to allow dust or very thick dust, allow thick dust or thick smoke to enter into the space of the mouth and breathe it in, basically. So allowing thick dust or thick smoke to come into the mouth and therefore breathing it in, it also invalidates fasting. To intentionally allow that to happen, and therefore one, if there's thick dust or if you're cleaning up, one would need to cover their basically nose and mouth with a mask, perhaps, that nowadays we're very familiar with. After COVID, many people have them at home, so you use it if you are fasting. Inshallah, we'll continue the rest of them in the coming sessions. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyina Muhammad wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal